welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated to CBS's Big Brother Season 22 All-Stars. Now, just like my previous videos, I'm going to be going into a review and recap on the most recent episode of Big Brother and then heading into live feed updates. I'll give a hand signal. If you don't want to know who is HOH and possible targets for this week, then you can turn the video when I do this later on. But let's start off where last episode left off, and that was Cody not using the veto on either Tyler or Christmas, and they are sitting on the block, and Big Brother tries to do this thing where they're like, it could be Tyler, it's probably Tyler, but it could be Christmas now, who knows who's going to be going home. And it's like, if you're watching the live feeds, nobody's talking strategy this whole week. Once he doesn't use the veto, it's pretty much set in stone that he wants Tyler out of this house, and Tyler is going to be the one leaving on Thursday. But they like to do this thing where it's like, who knows? And ultimately, if you look at like social media or these Big Brother blogs or have the live feeds, you know exactly what's going to go on. The one thing that's interesting that happens in this episode with the strategizing is when Memphis goes and talks to Cody, trying to put the heat on Tyler and take it off of Christmas because he wants to keep both Wise Guys alliances still strong heading into Final Five to make sure all of his sides are being looked out for and all of his blind sides are being watched out for. So he talks about how if he wins the next HOH, he's gonna for sure put up Christmas and Nicole is the pawn. But when he goes and talks to Enzo, he is talking and saying that, okay, if one of us wins HOH, we need to put up Christmas and Nicole, and then Nicole has to be the one going out. And of course, Enzo does what Enzo always does, and he runs right up to the HOH bedroom and compares notes with Cody, and Cody is just not having Memphis's two-way talk. He already doesn't trust him heading into this week after Enzo talked about how there's multiple Wise Guys alliances, and now he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. There's only like 6 people left in the house. News is going to travel really quickly because there's not a whole lot of channels for news to be going for. So with that being the case, Memphis, if he does not win HOH, could be in trouble heading into next week. But now, let's move on to something that I was more excited for, because to me, I know what's happening on the live feeds. Nothing is happening on the live feeds, and I'm sitting here going like, what are they going to fill this hour with? Well, the one positive of having a boring house with boring live feeds is that we get a longer jury house segment. In this episode, we get to see Ian naming all the turtles, and then Davon walking in, and they get to hang out, spill some tea to each other, and then we get to see the 3 triple evictees coming in one after another, and we get to hear what their perceptions are of the game. Let's start out with Davon and Ian talking, and they're talking about how they believe Danny is the best player in the game, and that she is running things in the house. They compare notes with each one's alliances, and Danny seems to be one of the common factors. There's a couple of other common factors, but they kind of just like let that slip through, and they think Danny is the best player and is really running this game. A week goes by, and Kevin shows up, and then right after that, David walks in, and then Danny walks in. That's right, Davon and Ian's perception of the game is now crumbling when Danny comes in, as they thought that she was the best player and that she was running the game. We move on to them actually sitting down and watching the triple eviction, and I just thought this was a fun time because I like to get to hear what the perception of all the jury members are of who's in the game, who's left in the game, and where their votes may be swaying as we get closer and closer to the finale. I have some thoughts right here. Danny is 100% rooting for Cody, even though he did not vote, throw a pity vote or a sympathy vote to her on her eviction. And then Kevin, after watching the triple eviction, seems to be really rooting for Tyler because Tyler took a shot at Danny, whom I'm pretty sure everybody guessed that Danny was the best player. So in his mind, that really holds a lot of weight. When talking about the triple eviction and the 3-2 vote count when it came down to either between Nicole and David left, everybody wants to talk about Enzo and why wouldn't he take a shot? Of course, his like talking out of both sides of his mouth and always talking about like, oh, we got to get a shot out. We need to do this. We need to do that. And then on the other side, he's saying the complete opposite. Well, now everybody's comparing notes in the jury house, and he's like, but that's contradictory to what Enzo said to me about wanting to win the veto to take a shot at them, because with Enzo not taking a shot at Nicole, really hurt his game and the perception of his game with David and with Kevin as of right now. Now, what I find interesting is Ian. Now, Devon came in talking to Ian about how Nicole was the one that flipped on him. And Ian was like, wow, okay, well, I feel like that's a game move. That's something that she felt that she had to do to help her get further into the game by selling me out. Ian is super analytical. He doesn't seem to take anything personal, which is good for Nicole, but also bad for Nicole, because if you're coming into the house with friends, you would think that, hey, if I'm at the end, Ian would vote for me. Well, not necessarily. He has like this algorithm to come up with the who should win, like statistically and numerically, on who should win over somebody else. And he was talking to Nicole about how a third of that is comp wins. And when you look at it, or what possibly the jury might think if it gets down to Nicole and Cody, if Nicole like somehow goes on this like winning streak, maybe it would start to even out. But the ultimate thing right now at this moment, if they were the final two right at this moment, Cody could make the case that they were playing this game like the same way and they were in the same alliances. It's just that Cody won more and got more blood on his hands and was really dictating this game over, say, Nicole, who was kind of being drugged to the end. So I feel as though that if it came down to it and Cody won a few more competitions and it was Nicole and Cody at the end, Ian's like algorithm would spit out that probably Cody should win this game. So yes, Nicole and Ian are friends. Yes, Ian is very analytical, and just being friends with someone is not going to secure their vote. And Devon seemed super betrayed by Nicole after she came to her over and over and over again asking who Nicole voted for, and it feels as though that she took the cowardice way out by putting in the goodbye messages to where they can't have an interaction with each other. So I feel as though that is a bridge that Nicole burnt with Devon. Now, speaking of votes, let's move on to the live eviction. And by a vote of 3-0, Tyler was evicted from the Big Brother house. I think this was the best move for everyone that's still in the house. I would definitely think that when outweighing or when looking at these two people's resumes, that, hey, let's just take out Tyler. He's the stronger competitor. And let's just keep Christmas, who pretty much crumbles under pressure. So then we move on to this week's HOH competition, which is stashing pumpkins, where you have to transfer these kickballs from one side of the teeter-totter to the other. On the other side of the teeter-totter, there is like a basket, and you have to put your pumpkins in there, and then you have to keep walking back and forth. If one pumpkin drops, or if you fall off the teeter-totter, you have to reset the whole thing. It's better to go slow and steady. And by the time the camera pulls out and this episode shuts down, Nicole is somewhat in the lead with 2, but Memphis and Christmas were hot on her tracks, and Enzo was moving at the speed of snail. But that is it for this episode. What do you think about this episode? Let me know that in the comment section below. Do you think Tyler was the right person to evict this week? Let me know that in the comment section below. And who are you hoping wins HOH this week? Let me know that too. Now we're moving into live feed updates. And like I said, there's not a ton of live feed updates to go off of, but the winner of this HOH competition of Final 5, securing their place in the Final 4, is Nicole Wins HOH. And it's actually pretty like mind-blowing, because she was the first one to drop a pumpkin. I mean, she instantly like walked up, dropped it in, and it instantly fell off while everyone else was going super, super slow. She must have beasted this out. She must have been slow and steady, not made a single mistake as we went on, or everybody else was just making more mistakes than she did. But she showed up, she won, and I'm sure Cody wiped the sweat off of his brow, and it looks as though that it is put in stone that she will most likely, I'm almost 99.99% sure, I'm Lysol percent sure, that Memphis and Christmas will going to be her nominees for this week. And if one of them wins veto, then Enzo will probably be the replacement, and whoever is sitting up next to Enzo will be the one 100% leaving this game. But I think that it's clear as day that Christmas and Memphis are going to be put in there. Nicole can't stand Christmas, and Memphis put her up in the triple eviction. And when looking at these two, I feel as though you take out Memphis, he's won more HOH comps, he's more brainy, and that's pretty much the HOH and veto comps from here on out is going to be brains. It's going to be days. Out of those two, I think you take the shot at Memphis, take him completely out, and then take Christmas out at Final Four, as long as you win the veto in Final Four, because that's the main power in this house. HOH is basically just winning immunity, and veto holds all the power at Final Four. But we're going to have to wait and see. The nomination ceremony is going to be later today, later on Friday. Then the veto competition is going to be Saturday. And then from there on out, we're going to know exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be a very predictable week. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of strategizing or like talks about it. I don't think she's going to take a shot at Cody, who seems to be the front runner, but he is like completely on her side. And I wouldn't think for her game, it would be best to try to take a shot at Cody, because if Cody leaves, she has nobody really in this game. Enzo would go directly over to the Memphis and Christmas's side. It's totally in her best interest to keep Cody, and keeping Cody in here will keep Enzo on her side as well. But that is my thoughts about what's going on in this house. What do you think is going to happen? Let me know that in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on Nicole being HOH, and who do you think she's going to put up? Let me know that in the comment section below. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. While you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be back really soon with more Big Brother content, more content in general. But until then, peace.